We'd like to, first of all, thank you for coming. Good afternoon, and I am Mike Gatson, the co-chair for the ABA Staff Diversity Council here in Chicago. And I'd like to just take the time, thank you for taking the time out of your schedules today to join us. We particularly like to thank our President Linda Klein, our Executive Director Jack Rives, and our Associate Executive Director and Chief Human Resources Officer Valeria Stokes for joining us as well. Last Friday was Veterans Day, November 11th. This day honors those persons who served in the United States Armed Forces. At this time, for those veterans who are present with us, we'd like to ask you to stand for those folks who are on the DC staff and the Chicago staff. Would you please stand if you're a veteran? Thank you for your service. Some confuse Veterans Day with Memorial Day. However, Memorial Day is celebrated in May, and it actually honors those who died while in military service. They made the ultimate sacrifice. Too many veterans return from active duty to confront urgent legal issues, including evictions, child custody issues and disputes, wrongful denials, and credit complications. And according to the study by the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, legal expertise is needed to solve at least half of the top 10 problems that lead to veterans' homelessness. Today, President Klein will share with us her plans to help veterans through the Legal Services Initiative. Jason Vail and Mary Meixner, our legal services staff personnel who are right here in Chicago, will also share with us the ABA's Pro Bono project and other programs that the ABA has in place to assist veterans. Next, I would like to just introduce Valeria Stokes, our Associate Executive Director and Chief Human Resources Officer.
Thank you, Michael. And I applaud Michael because Michael is one of our veterans as well. And we are very proud to be able to host this program. And what's most important is that we have a very strong commitment to veterans. And in fact, I don't know whether Holly is there in DC, but I do want to thank Holly Cook because she has attended and represented the ABA on veterans recruiting programs in the DC area. We have a strong commitment to the hiring of veterans. And to that end, I would like to introduce our number one veteran, our Executive Director and Chief Operating Officer, Jack Rives.
Well, thank you and good afternoon. We see an empty podium in D.C. on our camera here. Earlier we saw President Linda Klein. Now, you're not just empty suit, okay, but we don't know who all is there. My point was going to be here in Chicago, we've got a full room, and I hope there's good attendance in D.C. as well. So I do want to thank everyone who's participating today to recognize the veterans. I would point out that Mike Gatson, who of course we know as one of our paralegals in the lead paralegal in the Office of General Counsel here at the ABA, did have a history before he came here. Mike served 28 years in the United States Air Force, most of that time as a paralegal in the Judge Advocate General's Corps, and he retired as a Senior Master Sergeant, which is one of the very highest enlisted grades. So Mike, I know, is very proud of his service, and we're proud to have him on staff, and the service he did with the Air Force certainly prepared him well for us. The main reason we're gathered here today is to learn more about the ABA Veterans Legal Services Initiative, which will show us how lawyers really do make a difference. I know that from my prior service in the military, where there was a lot the military legal community could do, both active duty military attorneys and paralegals and the civilians who supported the active duty, as well as the reserve components, which is both the reserve and the guard. But most importantly, what I recognized when I was in the military before were the limits on what the active duty military could do, especially for veterans, even the veterans who had disabilities. There's a limit to what the active duty forces can do, but there's hardly any limit, especially in the legal area, to what the veterans can do and what the volunteer leaders can do. The American Bar Association for a long time has had a large group of people who are pro bono volunteers, and that represents the very best of pro bono service. When I was active duty and since I've been here, I've seen a very large number of attorneys who are willing to do things to help the veterans and to help those who served. In that regard, I would point out that the current issue of the ABA Journal, the November issue, has a signature piece from our president, and it's entitled "Serving Those Who Served." And it really is a well-written article that gives an anecdote of how lawyers help one lady in particular, but it's the larger group that we're able to help. Our program today will have presentations, as Mike said, from Jason, who's been with us for 8.5 years and has worked with the Legal Assistance Project with the military throughout that time, and also Mary, who's been directing the ABA's Military Pro Bono Project for about 6 years now. My real purpose today is to introduce the president of the American Bar Association. She needs little introduction to our group of staff leaders, but Linda Klein, 20 years ago, became the first woman to be president of the State Bar of Georgia. In 2004, she received one of the highest awards you can receive from the American Bar Association when she received the Margaret Brent Woman of Distinction Award from the American Bar Association. From 2010 to 2012, Linda served as the chair of our House of Delegates. And I need to let people know that Linda has a busy schedule. We're delighted she made the time to open the session today. Following this, she has an appointment at the Department of Veterans Affairs, so she won't be able to stay for the entire program that we have today. But it's my privilege to introduce the president of the American Bar Association, Linda Klein.
Good afternoon, Chicago, and all the. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Sure. I was asking the people in the room here in Washington, because someone in the back might want to change spaces with someone in the front, or more importantly, vice versa. That once happened to me. I said, "Can anybody hear me?" And somebody in the front offered to change places with somebody in the back. But thank you so very much for inviting me to speak at this very special celebration, and thank you, Jack. For those of you who don't know, Jack is from East Polk County, Georgia, so and he knows how important that is to the FJE when I say that. So I truly appreciate Jack's warm welcome too. But you know, the real praise and thanks should go to the Chicago Staff Diversity Council and all those who've been involved in helping to bring this successful and necessary program to the American Bar Association. So before I begin my remarks, I want to recognize the staff whose time and commitment to this program and this issue made this day possible. And that, of course, includes two speakers who are going to follow. Jason, who you already know, especially those of you in Chicago, the senior attorney and chief counsel for the Standing Committee on Legal Assistance to Military Personnel. And, of course, Mary Meixner, the director of the Military Pro Bono Project. I had this idea that we would get the ABA more involved in helping veterans. And candidly, I barely knew Jason and Mary, and they have warmly welcomed me into the community and have done so many things I couldn't even imagine to try to make this dream of helping more veterans a reality, and I thank them so very much. I also want to recognize Ken Goldsmith from the Government Affairs Office, who will be joining me at our meeting later today in the General Counsel's Office of the VA as we talk about some things that we can do. Here, Amy Horton-Newell is here in Washington with us, the Director of the Coordinating Committee on Veterans Benefits and Services. Maybe Cheryl Zelensky is out there somewhere, the Director of the ABA Center for Pro Bono. Cheryl, thank you for doing such a wonderful job organizing the National Pro Bono Celebration this year. And then we've already seen her stand up, Holly Cook, our Associate Executive Director of DC Operations, a veteran and a key resource to the Veterans Legal Services Initiative, and I thank you so very much. And maybe Jackie Casey's out there in Chicagoland. Thank you, the Director of the FJE, for all the help you've given as we try to raise money to make the Veterans Legal Services Initiative a permanent part of what we do here at the ABA. And thank you to each and every one of you for your dedication and excellence and service to the ABA. You guys make all of us look so good every day, and I can't thank you enough. But just as important, your excellence in service to our nation's nearly 22 million veterans. So this program is a testament not only to the sacrifices and contributions of our veterans, but also to the ABA's focus on making a positive difference in the lives of veterans who need our help after they've done so much for us. That includes the 1.4 million veterans who live below the poverty line and another 1.4 million veterans who live just above the poverty line. According to some government estimates, there are about 40,000 veterans in the United States that are homeless, and women veterans, who account for only 10% of all veterans, are the fastest growing homeless population in America. Like many Americans, many veterans don't recognize that the problems that they face are legal problems, issues that only lawyers can help them resolve. You've heard earlier mentions of what some of the problems are, like employment and family matters and evictions and wrongful denial of benefits and, unfortunately, involvement in the criminal justice system that often results from homelessness. In fact, according to a study by the Department of Veterans Affairs, legal expertise is needed to solve at least half of the top 10 problems that lead veterans to homelessness. Lawyers can do so much to transform the lives of veterans. For example, out there in Illinois, there was a Gulf War veteran who suffered from an aneurysm while on active duty and was medically discharged. But he was only awarded 70% in disability despite being absolutely unable to work due to his service-connected disabilities. But a lawyer, a volunteer lawyer, was able to help him obtain 100% disability and got him several $1,000s in back pay. And it made all the difference in the world for this veteran to be able to live comfortably. There was a 92-year-old World War II veteran who fought in the Battle of Normandy, and he sought an increase in his 70% disability pay for his service-connected PTSD because he was unable to work. And a lawyer was able to obtain 100% disability pay for him, and now he receives a little less than $3,000 a month, but that was almost double what he previously received. And he was also awarded back pay. And these additional amounts make all the difference to this veteran who was struggling very much financially. Lawyers' assistance can help families of our nation's heroes. There was a Vietnam veteran who died of heart disease that was related to Agent Orange. And a lawyer represented the widow of this Vietnam veteran and was able to get $7,500 in back pay for her. And that makes such a difference for people who are struggling so mightily to make ends meet every day. Now, here at the ABA, we've got a proud history of working on behalf of our military. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about our Veterans Legal Service Initiative that we started this year. It's a multi-pronged, holistic effort led by a distinguished 20-member commission that's headed by Dan Dorenzi, who's a retired 3-star Vice Admiral. And many of you probably know our other co-chair, Dwight Smith, who's an attorney who's held several leadership roles in the ABA. And of course, we have Jason and Mary and Ken and Jackie and Holly and so Cheryl and Amy and so many other people that we've mentioned already. As part of the initiative, we extended our traditional October pro bono celebration to include Veterans Day this year. And lawyers across the country stepped up. In Ohio, the Greater Volunteer Lawyers Project from Dayton, Legal Aid of Western Ohio, Operation Legal Help Ohio, all joined to do Wills for Heroes, where veterans were able to get free wills and estate planning documents. Here in Washington, D.C., the Veterans Consortium Pro Bono Program and the Duane Morris Law Firm held 3 pro bono pop-up clinics for veterans, and they assisted with family law issues, landlord-tenant issues, consumer law, employment law, veterans benefits, military discharge upgrade, and it just goes on and on. Nevada, the Nevada Legal Services Corporation, Young Lawyers of Nevada, they held Project Salute, where they assisted veterans with issues regarding benefits. And thanks to the work of the Veterans Legal Services Initiative, we're going to build a comprehensive online resource that's going to inform veterans and their caregivers and their families about legal issues that could affect them. It's also going to direct them to relevant local resources and legal providers for help.
The Commission is also mobilizing to expand legal services for veterans in many areas, to include starting legal clinics or medical legal partnerships at every VA medical center in the country. We know that when we add a lawyer to the team, to the medical team, that the utilization of VA medical hospitals goes down considerably, sometimes as much as 40%. Why? Because a lawyer solves the underlying problem that brings the veteran to the medical facility, like homelessness. We're also going to be setting up a comprehensive database that will be the first national and central resource allocated to provide pro bono legal service referrals for veterans. It's a problem. So a veteran comes to see me in Georgia. Often they were deployed out of Virginia or Illinois, and I'm not licensed to practice there, so I need to find other lawyers to help. And right now, the best we can do is using social media, and that's just not good enough to help our heroes. We'll also be promoting legal checkups for veterans and their families and their caregivers to help them identify those problems I mentioned that they don't know that are legal problems that can only be solved with legal assistance. Our Veterans Initiative is also going to engage with law schools and bar associations to promote legal services incubators. I got to visit one in Atlanta on I guess it was on Election Day. And the young lawyers that are there are very, very anxious to do pro bono work and help our veterans. These are ways to offer legal services to veterans while providing valuable training to these new lawyers. In addition, we're promoting veteran treatment courts and a possible expansion from just the criminal side to the civil side so that we can solve all of the veterans' problems right there at once. We're also going to address the unique needs of female veterans and female homeless veterans and explore why that population is growing so fast. We're looking into extending a successful pilot program that involved the ABA's Veterans Claims Assistance Network, you may know it as VCAN, and the Department of Veteran Affairs. And this program provided pro bono help to veterans whose benefit claims were caught in that massive backlog you heard about, and helped reduce that backlog considerably. Now, we're raising money to try to keep that program going right now. Finally, we're going to be participating in more veteran-specific pro bono activities around Memorial Day again in May. Another opportunity for lawyers and legal experts and law students all over the country to participate in hundreds more volunteer events for citizens and veterans. Distilled to its essence, many veterans' legal problems are fundamentally access to justice issues. Veterans are just a microcosm of a population that's too poor to pay for legal services. 80% of poor and modest income people lack access to legal services, yet half of those who qualify are turned away. The ABA's extensive effort to deliver justice stretches across our organization, across our country, and across the globe. Now, here at home, for example, the ABA Commission on Immigration directs our efforts to ensure fair treatment and due process rights for immigrants and asylum seekers within the U.S. And our advocacy for the Legal Services Corporation helps ensure that nearly 1.9 million Americans to whom it provides services annually, including many, many veterans and active duty service personnel, have access to justice that all Americans deserve. On the international front, ABA programs advance human rights and promote justice. Our Center for Human Rights, headed by Michael Pates here in Washington, leads the ABA's efforts to address critical human rights issues around the world. And I'm proud to note that ROLI, the Rule of Law Initiative, also headed here by Betsy Anderson, has for 25 years stood tall on the international stage on behalf of the ABA and promoted justice and economic opportunity and human dignity through the rule of law. So there is a reason why we are one of the largest voluntary professional membership organizations in the world. People look to us for leadership in the law. We are effective and we work hard to ensure the rule of law applies to everyone. Thank you all for your wonderful work. You make me so proud. And I hope you're filled with pride knowing the ABA is strengthening the foundation of the rule of law today and every day. I really appreciate you taking the time to invite me to this very special program. and I know you're going to enjoy the rest of it. Thank you very much.
President Klein, we'd just like to say thank you, and on behalf of all veterans, we appreciate the initiatives that are being undertaken on behalf of veterans all around this country. Thank you very much. Now we'd like to welcome Jason and Mary up to talk to us a little bit more about the programs that are currently available to veterans through the ABA. Let's go ahead.
Well, thank you very much, and it's great to see such a great turnout. I'm Jason Vail. I'm counsel to the Standing Committee on Legal Assistance for Military Personnel, and on behalf of Mary and I, we want to thank the Staff Diversity Council for inviting us to do this. Mary and I sort of toil away in our tiny little corner of the Legal Services Division on a day-to-day basis, and it's so great to have an opportunity to get out and talk about the work that we do and the things that we get to see on a daily basis, because thanks in part to President Klein's initiative, the issues that we've really grown to care about, access to justice for those who are serving, for their families, for the caregivers of our veterans, is an issue we're very passionate about. And to be able to tell you a little bit about what we get to do is a great opportunity for us. So I wanted to start before turning it over to Mary to talk about our signature initiative, the Military Pro Bono Project, just to tell you a bit about the Standing Committee. The LAMP Committee has been around since World War II in some fashion or another, and has historically been focused on supporting the delivery of legal services to those who are in active duty service. So we have worked with JAGs and civilian lawyers who work for the Department of Defense to support them in their delivery of legal services over the years. And in the course of the past 15 years, what we have seen is a dramatic increase in the demand for these kinds of services. Mobilizations, extended deployments, separations, and all kinds of things that have gone on during this period of wartime have led to our military families having an increased need for civil legal services. And so the LAMP Committee has really seen its workload grow over that time period. And now what we've seen in recent years, having focused on services to active duty, now what we are learning and seeing is that the legal problems don't end once the military service ends. There are legal issues that carry on past the transition out of active duty service. And so things like returning to work and having to have disabilities accommodated, dealing with the VA, all kinds of issues that are tied to the military service but that carry over into civilian life continue to be issues of concern to us. And so we have really expanded our work and expanded our focus, and having the kind of raised awareness about these issues that President Klein has been able to provide through this initiative has been just tremendous for us. So one of our main projects, which has been in response to the increased need for civil legal services for military families, is the Military Pro Bono Project. We started this project back in 2008, and in a nutshell what it is a national network of pro bono lawyers that provide all manner of civil legal representation to generally junior enlisted military personnel. And Mary is our director of this program, and I will turn it over to her to tell you more about what we do.
Okay, great. Again, Mary Meixner, thanks for the good introduction, and I'm so happy to see so many people here. And while we talk about this too, please consider how your sections, your divisions, your members could potentially get involved with this, whether the attorney involvement, publicity within your section, division, or otherwise. Keep that in mind while we're talking about this stuff. So I'm just going to briefly talk about the Military Pro Bono Project. I think, as Jason mentioned, we've been running this since 2008. And what's special about this program is it is a good coordination between all 5 branches of the military and civilian attorneys. So it's an opportunity for military legal assistance attorneys, JAGs, to get help for themselves, but also for their clients. And with that, it's a volunteer opportunity for civilian attorneys, ABA members, and other organizations. So we are a website-based program on militaryprobono.org, and this is where both military legal assistance attorneys and volunteer attorneys can sign up to participate and help. So this is how our program works on our website. We accept case referrals directly from military legal assistance attorneys, JAGs, on behalf of active duty service members, junior enlisted, pay grades E6 and below, who are facing civil legal issues. And we accept cases from all military branches, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard. And they simply go to our website, fill out a referral form. After these cases are submitted, screened, and approved, we place these cases with volunteer attorneys anywhere in the United States where it's needed. So again, we can accept these cases worldwide. So a person in Afghanistan has an issue in Chicago, go to our website and we'll work to get that service member the help that they need in the United States. We accept case referrals in a variety of different legal areas, as you can see here: family law issues, creditor and consumer law issues, landlord-tenant issues, etc. We do have a very high demand for family law cases, so we do have some standards of what kind of family law cases that we take, so we can help those who really need the help the most. So let me just give you a quick example of a recent case that we closed out so you can get an idea of how we work and how we're helping, keeping in mind that we are an active program here helping individuals. So we recently had a young Army service member, and he was transferred to a station in Europe. And when he did that, he left his beloved car. He was a young guy, he loved his car. He left his beloved car with a mechanic friend so he could store it there while he was in Europe. However, his mechanic friend was later evicted from the business property, and all the cars on his lot were towed. The soldier contacted the towing company after he found this out to tell him that he was active duty and he was stationed overseas. However, the towing company was not sympathetic about this and said that he needed to remove his vehicle and pay all the fees, or else it was going to be sold at auction. This service member informed the towing company of his rights under the Service Member Civil Relief Act, the SCRA, that protects this type of action from happening. But again, this towing company didn't listen to him. 2 days later, they sold his car at an auction without a court order, which is against the SCRA. So this individual visited a JAG, a military legal assistance attorney in Europe, who referred his case on our website, and we found this individual a volunteer attorney. This case was in Washington State. We found him a volunteer attorney in Washington State to take care of this matter. This attorney filed a complaint in federal court demanding damages from the towing company. The towing company obtained counsel, and their attorney soon wanted to make a settlement for this case, as you can imagine. And with this attorney's help, this volunteer attorney's help, this individual made a settlement that made everything whole for the client. And as an example, this success happened with this volunteer attorney dedicating a total of about 35 hours over some time of pro bono help with a value of about $10,000. So this is an example of how efficient this is and how great it can be from someone in Europe to get a pro bono attorney who can really solve their problem here in the United States. And that said, to get an idea of what we do, we're a very small team here doing this here in Chicago on the 19th floor. But we're securing about 200 military members, pro bono assistance for about 200 military members each year. And based on the case closing information that we get from our volunteer attorneys, just like described in that last case, these 200 cases represent about $1 million in donated billable hours each year. For the cases that are referred to us, since 2008, we've been placing about half of the cases that are referred to us. Some of these are screened out at the beginning, or otherwise we simply can't find attorneys or otherwise. But last year, 68%, over 2/3 of the cases approved in the screening process were successfully connected with volunteer attorneys. So that is our program, our case referral and representation program. We also have another arm to our program, and this is called Operation Standby. Operation Standby is an opportunity for volunteer attorneys to help with a small commitment, because this provides it gives the opportunity to provide attorney-to-attorney advice to military attorneys. There are times when military attorneys are often new attorneys or are dealing with cases with their clients that they might not be so familiar with. With Operation Standby, military attorneys can simply visit our website, view our password-secured list of volunteer attorneys signed up for this, and they can call them up, send them an email with a question, substantive question, geographic question with the court or otherwise. So in short, our volunteer attorneys are on standby to receive these emails or calls so they can help give advice to the military attorneys. Of course, the objective of this is so they can then further help their service member clients. So this is another great opportunity. We have about 700 or so attorneys scattered about throughout the United States who are registered with Operation Standby. In the last fiscal year, we found that these password-secured documents with the contact information were downloaded about 1,000 times. So this is a really great resource for our military attorneys, for our JAGs. So that is the military pro bono program. If you have any questions, you can ask me now, or just stop by the 19th floor, give me a call or email, and let me know. Yeah.
Mary, these are wonderful programs, and I know in addition to volunteer service, is there any way to make a charitable contribution to support your work?
Well, of course there is. And that's a great question, because we are actually fully run on donations from which includes, for example, the section of litigation. They have been critical to, they were critical in our first 2 years. They fully funded us for our pilot program for the first 2 years, and they have been donating a lesser amount, but critical money each year, along with the business law section, public contract, and others. Aside from that, we need funding from outsiders. We have received money from defense contractors, other corporations, and individuals, but we are a year by year when it comes to finances. So if you have ideas for this, we are always running on a string with financing. So if you have any ideas, definitely let us know. Okay, and before I turn this over to Jason, he's going to talk about all of our ideas and initiatives moving forward to grow this for veterans and otherwise. I do want to mention one website where hopefully we're actually have plans to upgrade this and otherwise, but it's a good source to know. It's abahomefront.org. This has two resources. It has educational materials for family law, for military families. But one thing that you might find helpful is it includes a directory of programs, which is organized by state and provides contact information for local pro bono programs, lawyer referral programs, and also, depending on the state, local military and veteran programs. So also a good resource to know. So.
All right, Mary,
Oh,
as you
yes.
and Jason are switching, I have no question. I just want to make one observation. For those of you who don't know, JAG officers are admitted to practice in one state, and then they're assigned all over the world. As much as this helps the military personnel who are getting direct pro bono assistance, if you're a JAG officer, whether you're brand new, or maybe you're admitted to practice in Maryland, you're assigned in Baghdad or Texas or whatever, it is invaluable to have access to somebody in that state, because you might know a lot about a state law, you might know a lot about criminal law, you don't know anything about that state's law, and to be able to call another attorney that's there just to get some advice. Where do you look? What's the statute? What do I need to know about this court's practices? This project is invaluable to those attorneys. So I just wanted to comment and applaud it from a personal level that I saw when I was at Fort Hood and when I was in Baghdad. My attorneys personally benefited, and we can't thank you enough for it.
Great, thank you.
Well, I never.
Mary, before you go forward, there's a question here. I'm sorry, Mary. Okay, the question, Jason and Mary, for the pro bono project, does it cover criminal law? I know for legal assistance within the military, if somebody in the military is involved in a criminal case, then they're either going to get a defense attorney within the military system and they'll be prosecuted, or administrative actions within the military system. But as far as cases that go out of the UCMJ, how much does your services cover those areas at a local level, Jason or Mary?
Yeah, we are limited to civil legal issues, so we do not bounce into the criminal area. So right now, civil legal issues.
Okay, thanks.
All right, and I don't like to pass up an opportunity to really tout and emphasize the importance of the work that Mary does. When she says we're a small team, it's sort of an understatement. It's really just Mary. She is the team. And as she said, she is funded solely from donations that we receive both internally and externally from the ABA, and has been that way ever since we started the project. So to be able to turn around $1 million plus a year in pro bono legal services based on this tiny little bit of money we receive to do what we do is really tremendous. And the story about the car is kind of a funny story, and it's a nice story, but the reality is a lot of the cases that we receive are quite a bit more serious. The fact is that over 70% of the case referrals we receive are for family law cases, which can be as you can imagine, fairly heavy to deal with. And the great paradox of this project is that because we are so limited in our staffing and our funding, when it comes to family law, which is the greatest need, because we have such limited capacity, we have to prioritize only the most significant and the most serious family law cases. So the challenge is we get these very difficult cases that we then have to find and convince lawyers all around the country to take at no cost to the client. So the 200 plus military families that get referred every year, that's considering 70% is for family law cases that can go on for years and involve, you've had cases that are thousands and thousands of hours of time that are donated by these lawyers. It's really, so when I say that, we're always excited to talk about it, it's very inspiring and heartwarming to us to see the kind of efforts that our volunteers put out on behalf of military families, and they do it all around the country for sometimes for clients they never even meet in person, and so it's really a privilege for us to be able to do this work. So I'll talk just a bit more about a few other things that we do, the LAMP committee, in addition to the military pro bono project. The project, because of the success that it's had, has really received a lot of very positive attention from all quarters, from the National Military Family Association giving the ABA its Supporting Military Families Award in 2010 for this project, to letters from the Judge Advocates General, the head lawyers for each of the military services. In fact, President Klein just received a letter a couple weeks ago, signed by all 5 of the Judge Advocates General, 2- and 3-star generals and admirals, heads of all of the military service legal programs, commending the ABA for doing this work. We are filling a gap that is not being filled by anyone else. That's why we created the program. There isn't any other service like ours. And so because of that, we then end up getting asked to do other things, which is both great and challenging at the same time. One of those projects is the Veterans Claims Assistance Network. As you have probably heard in the news, there are a lot of challenges in the VA, one of which has been in meeting the demand for delivery of veterans' disability benefits and veterans getting their benefits in a timely fashion. And so a few years ago, the White House General Counsel's office approached our Governmental Affairs Office with the question of what can the ABA and the nation's lawyers do to address this particular problem. And they looked to the Military Pro Bono Project as an example of how we've been able to get civilian lawyers engaged in providing free legal services for active duty families. And the question was, what can we do for veterans, specifically for disability claims? So as a part of that discussion with the White House and with the VA, we developed a pilot project called the Veterans Claims Assistance Network, and it works very similar in fashion to the Military Pro Bono Project, connecting veterans who are unrepresented and need help navigating the disability compensation system with the VA, needing assistance to get through that process and get their benefits and get them based on their application, not after waiting 3, 4, 5 years in appealing a denial of benefits. So thanks to an enterprise fund grant that we received internally here at the ABA, we were able to run a pilot in 3 regions around the country, Chicago, Roanoke, Virginia, and St. Petersburg, Florida. It ran for about 9 months in terms of intake. It was a little more than a year from start to finish. About 3,300 unrepresented veterans were contacted about the availability of the program. About 10% responded and requested assistance through the project. And we were ultimately able to connect about 150 with lawyers. As a pilot, there were a lot of challenges in the design of the system and the process. It was very different working with the VA than working with the Department of Defense, oddly enough. The DoD is much easier to work with than the VA. There were all kinds of interesting challenges, to say the least. But we were able to get over 150 veterans connected with lawyers who navigated them through the system, and about 2/3 ultimately received their benefits upon application. Just a few statistics on how the project worked. In terms of the process through the intake system and so on. But this was not just a great service to the veterans who needed the assistance, but also to lawyers who maybe can't take a multi-year family law case for a military family, or maybe they don't know anything about doing a child custody case or something like that. We were able to train our volunteer lawyers on VA benefits matters. We had an online curriculum which they were able to take, become certified by the VA to do VA claims cases, no matter what their practice background was. And the average time commitment was only about 35 hours per case, and the veterans received about $10,000 in donated billable hours on average, and ultimately, of course, then received their benefits, which was the most important thing. So since the closure of the pilot last year, we have gone through the process with the VA of renegotiating the agreement that governs the program. We now have a draft agreement ready to sign. We're raising the money to run the project, and we're very excited. Just this past Friday on Veterans Day, the Jones Day Law Firm at all of its offices around the country held events concurrently to announce what will ultimately, we believe, as we are working through the process, will be a partnership between the ABA and Jones Day to develop an online platform to connect veterans with pro bono legal services, and we hope that a part of that is going to be the relaunch of the VCAN project to continue the work that we're doing to get veterans their disability benefits. So finally, I'll just touch on the Veterans Legal Services Initiative. President Klein covered this in pretty great detail, so I'll just kind of run through this quickly because you heard about the things that the initiative is doing. But as I say, doing this work just puts us in the position of being asked to do more of this kind of work. And so it has certainly been a privilege to be a part of the team that is executing this initiative during this presidential year, but really with the hope and the intent that the initiative is going to continue well beyond the presidential year and be an institutional part of the ABA and its mission to serve those who have served. So, as President Klein explained, this is going to mobilize lawyers to serve the critical need for enhanced legal services for our nation's veterans. She talked about our co-chairs, Dwight Smith and Vice Admiral Terenzi, who Mary and I had worked with while she was the Judge Advocate General for the Navy on active duty. There's a 20-member commission that represents the full cross-section of all practice areas in assisting veterans, from homelessness to legal aid to private firm, pro bono, I mean, law school, clinic, you name it. We've got folks from every aspect of this area. President Klein talked a lot about some of these things, so I won't repeat them, but a lot of the projects that we are working on is development of medical legal partnerships at VA clinics, engaging law schools and clinical programs, incubator programs. The Legal Checkup Project is actually an enterprise fund grant project this year that's being handled by the Standing Committee on the Delivery of Legal Services. So that is ongoing. Looking at a variety of issues, policy matters, programs. It's pretty broad ranging, and it's doing quite a bit of work in all areas, and not simply just civil legal services. The National Pro Bono Celebration, I'll just mention that briefly, which Pro Bono Week ended a couple of weeks ago, but this year what we have done is we have asked organizations around the country to commit to doing more than just the week, but to do programs both through Veterans Day, as well as committing to do another project delivering legal services on Memorial Day. And so we have about 40 programs around the country so far that have signed up and made that commitment. And you will see, for those of you who may go to mid-year or annual, we have programming already on the schedule for mid-year. On the Saturday of mid-year, there'll be a CLE program on medical legal partnerships, as well as meetings by the commission and so on. And we are working on some programming for the annual meeting as well. So that's initiative. So just to wrap up, some helpful links and of course our contact information. To learn more about the initiative, as I say, it's covering quite a bit. You can take a look at ambar.org/veterans. That's where you'll find all of the information about the initiative. The LAMP committee is ambar.org/LAMP, but militaryprobono.org is really the place to go. It's kind of the hub for all of what we're doing in terms of outreach and program and services. So feel free to check that out for sure. So with that, I will conclude my remarks, but I'm happy to answer any questions or whatever you might have.
I have a quick one. Doesn't GP Solo have some sort of a military branch? Do you work in conjunction with them?
Right. That's a great question. So there are actually a lot of entities around the ABA that do military, have some kind of military or veteran-focused project or program, and GP Solo has its military law committee. We meet with them twice a year, mid-year and annual. And there are other, Family Law has a military law committee. I mean, there are a bunch of different entities. And so I don't actually have the link up here, but if you go to ambar.org/veterans, you can find information about the Coordinating Committee on Veterans Benefits and Services, which is staffed by Amy Horton Newell, who's in DC, and the Coordinating Committee actually pulls together all of those entities to coordinate them in the work that they're doing, make sure we all know what everybody else is doing, find ways of complementing each other's work and working together and collaborating and so on. So the Coordinating Committee is our way of kind of bringing that all together under one roof. Yeah.
Are these programs just for attorneys, or is it for veterans? Because I used to be
Right.
an American Veterans Association and also Disabled American Veterans Association. I have not seen anything from the ABA, any in the hallways or
Right.
through my organization that I belong to.
Sure.
And the first time I saw anything like this was that flyer hall.
Right. So with respect to the Veteran Focus Program, the VCAM program, because it was a pilot, we pretty tightly controlled the intake process and the outreach that was done around it because we had a limited scope, I guess, on what we could do. So it wasn't broadly publicized. Under the new draft MOU with the VA, it will actually be veterans who are filing a notice of intent to seek benefits will receive information about the program. So it's going to be a much more widely available project. So you probably didn't see it because we actually just focused very strictly on unrepresented veterans currently in the system with pending claims in only 3 regions. So that's the reason why. And again, in part due to resource limitations and funding limitations and other things, we do have to try to control the numbers of folks coming into the system who are seeking help. So there are some limits. In other words, we don't have a phone number where folks can just call up Mary and say, "Hey, I need a free lawyer," and we wish we could do that, but if we did that, then she'd spend all day on the phone and not be able to do anything else. So that's one of the challenges we have. Yeah.
So how do veterans know that your programs exist?
Right. So in terms of programs they can access, for the active duty program, we actually work with all of the military services and their heads of legal assistance, their chiefs of legal assistance. They actually are liaisons to our committee. And they put out information to all incoming JAGs who are coming on active duty, plus all of the ones who are already providing legal services. They regularly promote our program. They teach about it at the JAG school when the military attorneys go through their legal assistance training. So it has, over the last 8 years, become institutionalized in the military services about the program. Everybody, hopefully, we always find little gaps, but for the most part, everybody knows about it. It's available. People know to ask about it. So we've done a great job with the active duty side. What we hope is that with the launch of this new VetLex initiative with Jones Day and hopefully the relaunch of the VCAN project, we'll be able to do the same and make our veteran program just as widely available. But as I say, we haven't gotten to that point quite yet. So that's the issue. Yeah.
I guess we're going down the line here.
Yeah.
In terms of the VCAM program, in terms of the licensing for attorneys in order to help with the claims processing and filing, is that limited to attorneys or can paralegals also do it? Since it wouldn't necessarily take a lawyer.
Yeah, I know.
To figure out the process. It might be a way to explain the program.
Right. This is one of the big challenges, and we've actually gotten this question a lot. So the VA actually, the VA General Counsel's Office controls that accreditation process. You have to be accredited in order to represent a veteran in front of the VA, and their regulations have limited it only to attorneys. Now, a paralegal can work under a licensed and accredited attorney to do whatever, preparation of documents, assistant, otherwise, but they haven't expanded the eligibility, I guess, to include paralegals operating on their own, and so that is something that we've raised with the VA General Counsel's Office in the past, and I'm sure we'll continue to do so. But it's controlled by their regulations, unfortunately.
It might be something to look into simply because with the triple LTs and the other expansion of paralegal programs in states, it might be something that they might want to look at.
For sure, yeah. No, and quite frankly, I mean, there are veteran service organizations do some of the same type of work. They get accredited a different way, but they're neither lawyers nor paralegals. They just simply get trained, but because they're under a veteran service organization, they're able to do that. So it seems like there should be a way to do that, and we'll keep trying to convince them. Anything else? All right, I think that does it.
Thank you, Jason and Mary. As they indicated, a lot of folks do fall through the cracks. There are veteran services organizations that assist a lot of us as we transition from military to civilian life. And we're able to take advantage of those services. And even they have VA regional offices that we're able to use, VFWs. But like I said, for those folks that fall through the cracks, we need additional resources and help. So part of our goal as the Staff Diversity Council was to make sure we can educate those of you who know veterans, maybe related to veterans, friends out there, that you can kind of get the word out and that we can do more to help veterans. So with that, we certainly thank Mary and Jason and President Klein for the things that they're doing and things that are coming in the future.